It's the Terrible at Fishing radio show on Gold Country Radio. Here's your fishing expert and host, Michael Raffino.
All right, welcome back to Terrible at Fishing, everybody. Well, this week, I thought we'd talk a little bit about fishing rods because it is spring almost. And, well, we're starting to get the itch, aren't we? Well, I'll tell you that the lakes got a lot of snow on them. That doesn't mean you can trust that ice, all right? If you are crazy enough to walk out there, you make sure you get your spud bar and you're pounding that ice in front of you. Now, you'll find that the edges are very fragile, so you'll probably fall into the lake before you even get on any kind of safe ice. But I would caution you against it for this week or for the rest of the season. So our ice fishing season is pretty much concluded. Now we're waiting for that ice to melt and open up some of our lakes. We are, though, going to get there very, very soon. In the meantime, we do have river fishing right now, and we do have some lakes. I mean, you go down and over into the valley, over off I-5 there, you could go over to Agate Lake. You could go to, over in Medford. You could go to Willow Lake on the other side, on the downhill side of the Cascades. And you could go over to Emigrant Lake. Now, those lakes don't freeze. So you go there. You catch some fish. Water's still cold, though, so you're not going to get any of the warm fish, but you can get lots of panfish. You can get trout, and you can have a good old time doing that. Now, as for spring. This time of year, we start to get the itch, don't we? We start looking at our rods, think, I got to go fishing. Just got to go fishing. So I'm starting to get the same itch as y'all. And so I'm making my baits, among other things, my art, sort of my off-season stuff, and looking at my rods, making sure they're tuned up. Now, I'll tell you something about tuning your rods or your reels. Reels are very easy to tune, especially spinning reels. Spinning reels are very easy to tune. Put a couple drops of lube inside the handle bearings. That gets inside, spin it a few times, remove your spool, and make sure that the spindle's actually nice and clean. And put it all back together and you're good to go. The thing will spin like a brand new reel. As for our bait casting reels, that's a little bit different. We do use gear oil in them, but we also have a grease that we put on the worm gear. And that's got to be maintained as well. I do have some videos on doing this on my Terrible at Fishing channel on YouTube. Now, I've been asked to do a TV show. I'll let y'all, send me some emails. Tell me what you think about a TV show on the new community television station. But I will tell you that I ain't got a whole lot of time. For a retired guy, I don't got a lot of time. So I don't know if it would be one or the other, TV or radio, one or the other. So I don't think I have enough time to do both. So I don't think I'm good look. I have a face for radio, so I don't have a face for TV. So I kind of look in the mirror, and the mirror tells me which medium I should be on. Now, let's talk about fishing rods. Now, fishing rods. And we live in trout country, so fishing rods, they come in every size, every weight, every thickness you can imagine. You walk into, let's say, Dick's Sporting Goods or Bass Sporting Goods or Cabela's or someplace like that. And they've got these rods, stretched up over aisles, and it creates a tunnel. There's hundreds of rods. Hundreds of rods. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, where do I start? Well, if you're an experienced fisherman, you already know what you want when you go in there. But if you're not an experienced fisherman, and let's say you just want a good, fun, let's do almost everything rod, and you live in Klamath Falls, which is where we all live, well, you're going to go after trout and panfish. And it's pretty much what you're going to go after. And bass. I mean, once in a while you can catch bass. Me, I'm a bass fisherman. You all know that. But for a good all-around rod, that's what we're going to talk about first, is an all-around rod. Now, I will tell you that on rods, a rod is made up of what's called a blank. That's really the rod itself. That's the blank. And the blank quality has a lot to do with how long it's going to last and how accurate it's going to throw. So, and how it's made. So, that blank has a lot to do with, it is the rod. And then you've got the handle, where your hands are. And you've got the reel seat, where the reel is attached to. That's the two screws that hold your reel on. That's the reel seat. And then you've got guides. Those guides are what your line goes through. Those little circles go all the way up to the tip of your rod. These are the portions of a rod. In my book, I really break this apart really well on all the different materials rods can be made out of, and why guides are very, very important. Now, I will tell you one thing about guides. I like guides that have an insert, but they got to be good inserts. Typically, they're Fuji guides. And more guides, the better. You don't buy a 7-foot rod with 6 guides on it. You just don't usually do that. You want 10, you want 12, you want a lot of guides. Now, why are guides important? Well, guides keep the line straight, and it allows the line to flow off of the reel in a nice steady stream. If you don't have that many guides, it gets bunched up, and it can kink, and it really destroys your casting. More guides are better. It's as simple as that. So when you go in and you're looking at all these rods, you see one with a few guides and the one with a bunch of guides. Well, the one with a bunch of guides will cast a lot better than the one with a few guides. Absolutely. It's kind of a no-brainer on that one. So that's easy, right? We ain't stringing it through 10 or 12 guides, but, we do, because we want the better experience. Now, there's the handles. Now, there's a split handle and a one-piece handle. So, I'm more of a split handle type of guy. Almost all my rods are split handles. There's some, because they don't come that way, I can't have it. Because I like a certain brand of fishing rod. And if you're wondering what that brand is Cajun rods. Cajun is an American-made rod, not Chinese-made. And it's made I think it's in Ohio nowadays. I think they moved from Jacksonville to Ohio. So anyway, they use carbon fiber to make their blanks. And they make their own blanks. And they stand behind their product really well. So, split handles. Why do I like split handles? A split handle has a gap between the two foam areas. You see at the bottom you got cork and foam. And it just depends what you're comfortable with. Some of these handles, I have one that's made of carbon fiber. They can transmit the bite better through the handle. Now, a split handle, you've got some of the blank in between. And it's really nice because when you don't have anything in between your hand and the blank, or even just a finger or two, you can feel subtle bites. So that line gets a few little bites. It's going to transmit that vibration all the way up to your rod. That blank, which is your rod, will transmit it from the tip all the way down to your hands. A solid handle, a solid one-piece handle, will have a hard time transmitting it. At least with the split handle, I have an area I can go ahead and put a hand on or a couple fingers on and see if I could feel it. That's my advantageous handle, so I could feel the bite better and set the hook. Otherwise, if I have a one-piece handle, which I do because, like I said, there are certain rods that I like that don't have split handles, a one-piece handle, I just have to put my finger on the line. And there are other ways, of feeling a bite. Now, a lot of people, they don't understand the difference between the two major categories of rods. You've got yourself a bait casting rod and you got your spinning rod. Now, spinning rods, we all know what a spinning reel is. That spinning reel sits below the rod, and the guides are underneath the rod on its spine. A bait caster sits above the rod, and the guides are much smaller, and they're on top of the spine. They're right on top of the rod. Bait casters have a little trigger on the handles. There's a trigger so you can. It gives your hand a spot to pull back on and set the hook. Spinning rods don't have that. The reason being is that they've got the spinning reel, and typically you've got your fingers wrapped around that spinning reel, and it becomes the trigger. So there's a big difference in the way these two rods are designed and the parts on it. Spinning rods have big, giant guides on them. Big guides. Now, they have to have that because the line is coming off of that spool in a big, giant circle. And it's got to filter it down into a really tight spiral by the end of the rod tip. The bait caster, it comes off a rolling spool, something that spinning reels don't do. The spool rolls, and it comes off in a nice tight line anyway. Typically, you could get a better cast with a bait caster. And once you go bait casters, it's really hard to go back to spinning. Now, spinning rods, they can cast very light things. Something that you have to have a special reel in bait casters to do. And that's called a BFS, or a bait finesse system. And I do have a couple BFS reels in my arsenal. And, maybe this year I'll give one away. I don't know. We'll see. But the BFS is my favorite form of fishing. I like throwing really light tackle, and I like the fight on a very light tackle setup. So you could catch. This is sort of your your timeout here. Where can you catch a 10-pound fish on 2-pound test or 4-pound test? I'll let you think about that. Can you catch a 10-pound fish on a line that will break with 4 pounds of pressure? Do 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 do. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, and it's a whole lot more fun. So we're gonna take a break now. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk more about the different weights and actions that you will see at the store on fishing rods. So stay tuned, listen to our sponsors and the news, and we'll be right back.
Out in the backwoods under the stars, I tune in the radio from my old car. Gold Country Radio on Friday night. Terrible at fishing, but it feels just right.
Want to get your business noticed? Sponsor a show on KKFO Gold Country Radio on 103.3 FM and create awareness through on-air announcements, our online stream at goldcountryradio.org, and our podcasts that live on forever. Your message reaches a broad local audience while also targeting listeners who choose to tune in to the shows they love. Plus, we promote your sponsorship across our website and social media. For more information, email goldcountryradio@gmail.com. Call 541-238-6989 or visit goldcountryradio.org. Gold Country Radio, your message heard locally and beyond.
The Terrible at Fishing Radio Show. Michael's got the secrets and now you know. Can't line your cast just fine. Gold Country Radio.
Welcome back to Terrible at Fishing, everybody. So we're talking about fishing rods, and we talked basically about the parts of a fishing rod in the first segment, and now we're going to talk about some of the numbers that you're going to see on the rod. Now, there are a few things posted on every blank. Just above the handles, there's the action. All right, so, and then there's the power. And then, of course, the size of line and weight it's designed to be utilized with. So those are the things that are there. So a lot of people don't understand some of these things. Now, some of it is self-explanatory. Things like how heavy of a weight that you could put on your line and what line it should have on it. Kind of easy because that's posted right on the line and on the baits. But a lot of people don't understand power and action. And power and action are crucial. Really, really crucial. So, in our area, we go trout fishing. And I'm a bass fisherman, so I will tell you an advantage of trout fishing. You really only need one rod. With bass fishing, you need a bunch of rods. We'll talk about that too. But with trout fishing and pan fishing, you only need one rod. And that's a rod we would call a light, or maybe even an ultra, anywhere from an ultralight to a medium light. So you want the word light in your power of your rod. What is power? Power implies the stiffness of the rod. So if you want the rod that can handle throwing a 1/16 of an ounce or 1/32 of an ounce. I've even gone down as 1/80th of an ounce. Well, I can't have what's called an extra heavy rod. Throw that. It just can't do it. I mean, it just, tangle up, be a mess. I need a rod that is thin. And really, you look at the thickness of the blank, which is the rod body. When you look at the thickness of it, it's kind of going to give you a clue. If you look at an ultralight rod, it's really tiny. You look at an extra heavy rod, it's really, really thick. And that's and everything else is in between. So if you want to cast, let's say, a small spinner, a rooster tail, or even jigs, small jigs, you have to go with a rod that has the word light in it. And that's really most of the fishing that we have in our area. Now, bass fishing is not something for the timid or for those with no money. You need a rod. Bass fishing, you have a rod for everything. I have ultralights, I got lights, I got medium lights, mediums, medium heavies. I got extra heavies and extra heavies. And the reason being is that I make baits that are down to, very, 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 very light, and to 8-inch, 5-ounce baits I throw. I can't throw a 5-ounce bait with my ultralight. It would break my rod. So that's where you want to pay attention to your rod's recommendation of bait that you can put on it. You do not want to overload your rod and break your rod. Now, some rods are near impossible to break. That doesn't mean they're better. It just means they're made of some really good stuff, but doesn't mean it's more sensitive. Almost all my rods are carbon fiber. Carbon fiber has the reputation of not breaking, but it does break. I've broken quite a few. And it's just the way it is. All rods can break, I will tell you that. And that's where your company that makes your rod comes into play. Will they back you up? And I will tell you, Cajun Rods does back me up. I think it's $25 I pay for another one just for the shipping, and they send me another one. But that's kind of what you want. In our area, if you want a nice all-around rod, find a rod with the word light in it. All right? With the word light in it. So that'd be ultralight, a light, or a medium light. For our area, and you will be having so much fun catching fish, because even a 1-pound fish feels big on a light rod. And that's what I love about it. 90% of my fishing is done on light rods, because I just love the drama of hooking a fish with a rod that's bending all the way over on me. And so will you. Now, action is different. Action is how much of the rod flexes. So, you can have a rod with a tip that only flexes down to about 20% of the rod blink, or 25% or 30%, or it could be a big wet noodle. Now, it's going to be interesting when I tell you this, because a fast rod it flexes at the end of the rod. So about 20-25%. A medium one will bring that flex down onto the blank to about half, about 40 or 50%. A slow rod, which you will not find very many of on the market. Slow rods are wet noodles. Basically, you've just got the handle doesn't flex, but the rest of the rod does. That'll drive you nuts. You really don't want a slow rod. Slow rods are just big, wet noodles. You want something that's medium or fast, or medium fast. You got, right in there. You want to be able to set the hook without losing it. Now, the reason slow rods are horrible, and you don't see too many of them on the market, is because when a fish bites it and you set the hook, you're going to set that hook hard, but if the whole rod is flexing, the fish can shake that hook right out of its mouth. But if you've got 50% of that rod blank at least that is stiff, you've got the ability of keeping that hook in that fish's mouth. This is really important. If you want to land the fish that you are trying to, that you've hooked, you want a fast or, maybe a medium fast rod. So now what have we looked at here so far? So in the Klamath Falls area, for just fun fishing, you really want a powerful rod that in the light category. But you want an action in sort of that medium fast category. So that's kind of what you want. Now, as for picking your reels, oh, and we've talked about lines, right? We've talked about lines. Fishing line, you're going to go fluorocarbon. You really are. You can go like a with light line, you're going to go 4 pound, fluoro. Fluorocarbon is invisible to fish in the water. Fantastic line to throw. If you want to get longer casts out there, then you're going to go with a really nice light 4-strand a braided line, but put a liter of fluorocarbon on it, about 5 or 6 feet. And then you could cast that thing a mile and get more line on your spool. Now, what was I about to talk about? And have a drink of my 7-Up Zero. Reels. And it was going to come to me, good old 7-Up. And so reels. There are so many. There's really 2 categories. Actually, there's 3 categories. There's spinning reels, there's bait casting reels, and there's spin cast reels. And spin cast reels get sort of I don't think they've got a good enough, voice. Spin cast reels are really, 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 really easy to use. It's probably what you learned on as a child. The Zebcos that you press the button and you casted it. That's a spin cast reel. Spin cast reels have gotten professional grade nowadays. And you can get a Zebco Bullet that is fantastic. It's about $100 reel. But my goodness, it is a fantastic reel. And there are other reels similar to it. So a spin cast is probably the easiest. Well, it is the easiest reel to use is a spin cast reel. But they can be heavy. They're definitely bulky. And so I like going out fishing 10 hours a day. So I'm casting a lot. My wrist is really in motion quite a bit, while I'm working the line. So then there's the spinning reel, which you all know about. Spinning reels are very, very, very affordable. You can get good ones for $40-$50, and they do very, very well. Now, they come in different sizes. They have like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 on up. That's how bulky they are, how much line they can hold. So a 1,000 or a 500, we use 500s for ice fishing. But 1,000 is a small one. I prefer 2,000s when I'm fishing. Good old 7-Up makes you burp. So 2,000 is my favorite size. Now the reason being is it's got more. It can hold more than enough line for me to play with. I'm not going to cast hundreds of yards. I'm just not going to do it. So a 2,000 is lightweight, and again, I'm casting all day long. You don't want to exhaust your muscles in your arm and get carpal tunnel, and at the end, the next day, you're just sort of putting, icy hot on your arm. You don't want that. You want to have fun. You don't want to be punished the next day. Or if you're going out for several days, you want to be able to fish for several days. So typically, most people buy 3,000s because it's in the middle, but 2,000s are better in my opinion. Because you don't need that much line on your spool. You just don't need that much line. So 2,000 allows you to have fun without pain, especially for an old guy like me. And then there's bait casters. I will tell you one thing about bait casters. Bait casters have a learning curve, and it will drive you nuts. But if you have somebody to teach you how to use a bait caster, you can't go back, because with one hand, one cast, you can get better accuracy without having to flip a bail and flop that bail back over. It is probably the nicest reel I've ever learned how to use. The problem with bait casters is that unless you have a BFS, you cannot cast a light bait on it, a really light one. And they're lousy in the wind. I always have a spinning rod on my boat in case the wind is really gusting and I can't use my bait caster. Spinning is your fallback position. Even though I prefer a bait caster, there are some times of the day, that I cannot use it. I hope this show helped you a little bit. I know we're all itching to get back out there. But again, hit the rivers right now until the lakes unfreeze. But until then, keep your lines tight, have fun, and please be safe out there. Take care, everybody.
That was Terrible at Fishing, the radio show, with fishing expert Michael Raffino. Check out Terrible at Fishing on YouTube, and tune in next week for the next episode and more great fishing tips. Terrible at Fishing, Fridays at 7 p.m. on Gold Country Radio.